let's get to it. Sometimes we like to go in chronological order, but then there's something called being a pillar that gets to the front of the line, y'all. James B. Post this in here. I was wondering, anybody know the latest on Jaylen Key? That's who we are looking at for safety, Michael Langston.
Yeah, it's the UAB defensive back transfer. Certainly a very coveted guy. Officially visited FSU last weekend, then visited Alabama for an official visit. I think it's between those two teams. I kind of go not to play devil's. I kind of really go back and forth. It's like yesterday I felt like Alabama, and then today, talking to a few people, it's really it could go either way. I don't want to tell you. I don't think a decision has been made. I think FSU did a really good job, but it's also still Nick Saban. They do a really good job with defensive backs over there. But I think what's attracting and making it difficult is just the fit of how he fits into FSU. He knows he feels comfortable that he can come right in there, make a play, and he understands where they're going as a program. And that's also a school that he's been around a lot. A lot of his life, being from Quincy, Florida, playing at Gadsden County, and also playing at Godby. So it's a tough pick between the two, and I think he goes back and forth. I do not think he's informed any staff of a decision, so I'm hoping by tonight I should have a feel for it. He's likely going to decide, from what I hear. Our own Matt Lassier got up with him last night and said the feeling was that he was going to decide by Friday. So could know something by Friday. I think there's certainly a solid chance, but that's kind of my feelings at this moment of kind of where FSU sits in that one. I'm hoping to get some finality to this one as far as which way it could go, because right now it like I said, it goes both ways. I was ready to tell you guys, hey, you know what, it's probably looking like Alabama, and then got some stuff today, so we're still waiting, and um, certainly a guy that's coveted in a lot of ways, both from the NIL perspective and also from the field and just what he would bring to this roster. So the waiting game continues until I can find out more.
If this kid was from Stockbridge, Georgia, he'd be all Alabama, wouldn't he?
Yes, I would agree with that. I think there's a lot of ties. I mean, Corey Fuller was his former coach. But I think also the job that FSU did on that official visit was really good. Like it was really it was able to connect and resonate with Jaylen in a way that I don't think any visit has done. And then at the same time, nobody has done a better job with defensive backs lately than Alabama when you look at what they do. Or I would say nobody, but they're one of the best. So that makes this really challenging. And I think it goes back and forth.
If he had more than 1 year left, I'd go I'd say 60-40 Florida State. But
Yeah. Yeah.
my feeling is 60-40 Alabama right now, because I think you got 1 year, man. It'd be great to come back home for that one last ride, but it's
Right.
you got one
Yeah,
last
that's
year you need to maximize, and I just love Adam Fuller. I know a lot of you don't, but I love Adam Fuller. But it's man, Nick's saying hey, I got you. It's
yeah. I would say it's even a narrow margin than that, but I would probably say slightly Alabama. But I go back and forth, man. It's just like I would love to tell you guys it's one side or the other because I check on this like every hour, but I can't do that yet. But I tell you, Aslan's one, I could see that. So I'd say slightly. But again, this thing, there's no decision being made yet. He's digesting and putting this stuff together and still figuring it out. But certainly, there's a lot of advantage that FSU has, and then there's advantages that Alabama has as far as the sustained product. And as Aslan mentioned, 1 year, so you got to make sure you do it right.
Ease says that he's scared Akeem Dent would transfer out since he's a graduate and he can do that if they were to land Key, because the portal is still open if you're a grad transfer, which brings us to Kevin Hickson's question, Michael, about so what's the backup plan? Apparently, I think a new name has surfaced.
I mean, they have several guys. I think our own Matt Lassier put it on our site earlier today about Louisiana safety. I got to look it up, guys, because this is mainly Matt's baby as far as him doing this today. But certainly a guy that
Cam Pettisclo.
okay.
My
Okay.
Cajun is not all that great. My French is not all that great, but I think it's Cam Pettisclo.
Yeah, so he's another safety. as Matt pointed out in his update, one of the second highest graded safeties in the country.
Correct.
Certainly, you also the size is not quite there as much with him compared to a guy like Jaylen Key, but certainly a very productive guy. A guy that I also hear Alabama's involved with. That tells you that decision
Mhm.
with Key is not a certain thing for Alabama. It's not like they think it's a layup and it's lockdown. So that's another guy that I think they're involved with, from what I can tell. So definitely going to be a guy that I expect FSU to have ties with. Certainly, kick the tires on, look into, and see if the fit is there, like it was with Jaylen. So that's another one. Demetrius Hill out of FIU is another one that I've listed that I'm kind of monitoring. So they have several backup plans. They're keeping it quiet about who the other options are, because I don't think they want it out there like, hey, we're also involved with this guy, until a decision process happens with Key. But I will reveal some names once that process is finished, whether FSU gets them or not. But those are a few guys to keep in mind.
Safe to say they want another safety, Michael.
Yes, I think they're going to get a safety. So whether it's Key or somebody else, I do think they'll add a safety in this class. I think it's very important to them. It's the most vital position, I think, that they need to add for this team, because they need a productive, experienced guy, NFL type of player that can help them, kind of lead a lot of these young guys.
Jeremy Wells, Michael, how are we looking for Keon Coleman?
Yeah, I just covered Brandon, so I know you asked that question. Or Keon's a little more, I would probably say, complex, because I don't like with Key. I think the factors are pretty clear. I think with Keon, it's more what the receivers have done, what the development has done at receiver, who's done the best job of that, what place does he fit the best at. I think NIL is also going to be a factor where he wants something nice, because we're talking about a 1-year player that's probably going to be off to the NFL after this year, because Keon's very productive at a top talented school like Michigan State. So I think that's another one that's close with Ole Miss and FSU. For people that didn't follow, officially visited FSU, then went over to Ole Miss for official visit. I don't think there might be one more visit. Maybe Louisville is the team I've heard a lot about, as far as that team he could visit. But this is another one that I think is tight, and I think it really just turns to what perspective you look at of what's the most important to Keon. Is it the offense? Is it connection with the coaches, or is NIL going to lead more of the way, or is it going to be who's been a little more consistent with receivers, compared to FSU and Ole Miss? We know FSU did really well last year. They did a great job with these guys that came in. FSU did a phenomenal job over the weekend. They had Jordan Travis. They had Johnny Wilson around him, a lot of other players. It wasn't just those two. There was a ton of players that were around him. They pitched it perfectly. They nailed it. FSU is the more likely to be good next year. I think FSU, the likelihood of being in the top 10 and being a prestigious program is also good. And I think the other thing is Ole Miss is lacking more than what FSU is lacking at receiver. So I think with Keon with FSU, that's the missing piece. With Ole Miss, he could be the leader of what they have. So I think they're kind of wanting to get some big time guy to finish it off. And so I think it really just matters on what turns out to be the most important. This is another one that for me is too close to call. That I feel like by the weekend I'll have a pretty good gauge. As far as where this is teetering, where this is going. I know FSU felt good going into that Ole Miss visit, but Ole Miss also feels good of they getting them on campus last. So it kind of, we have to wait and see once he sits back and rehashes and sees what's the most important thing. If it is the best product and best team on the field, you have to like FSU's chances, because the chances of them being good or higher than what Ole Miss chances are. So that's what I'm kind of waiting on. So I think it's going to be another tight one, guys.
2-team battle. So I mean, I guess Louisville might be out. So LSU's not a factor in this recruitment
I
right
have not
now.
heard anything about LSU in there.
Oh,
The only team I've heard frequently is Louisville, and then FSU and Ole Miss. Those have been the teams that I've heard, in the last 48 hours, checking my phone like a billion times. Those are the teams that I've heard. But it's also there's a caveat to this where there's another guy lingering in the shadows for FSU, and that's the guy Franklin out of UTSA. Um, I checked and was told I think I would say on Tuesday evening that if they weren't able to get Coleman, that the FSU side feels some confidence that they can get this done with Franklin. That they feel like they've done the work behind the scenes and they've done work with communication relationship. That's a guy like they feel like there's some confidence. Doesn't mean they're going to land them, but there's something about it that whether they feel like, hey, we got a shot, to get this one. So keep that in mind. I would not be surprised if you see Zach visit FSU either this weekend or during the week, and that something gets set up. But I think obviously they're waiting to see what Keon does. But I think regardless, I think he's still going to probably visit. Whether they're not going to just sit there and wait around like, oh, when are you going to make a decision? They're going to certainly move forward and certainly give themselves options. But Franklin's definitely the one to watch. I have not heard another receiver. Those two receivers have been the main receivers I've heard. So if they do get a receiver, I think it's going to be one of those two. And I would just keep that guy in mind, through this process. And just because you hear he's visiting doesn't mean like, unless I'm telling you like, hey, I hear like the decision's likely, looks like it's going to be somewhere else besides FSU, then you could lead into it. But I was told like FSU is going to make sure they give themselves options if the receiver checks off what they're looking for.
Does it mean anything that, they've gone after Coleman to the degree that they've had him on campus here already versus
Yeah.
Franklin in terms of maybe what they value out of these two guys?
I just think with Keon, he gives them a different aspect that they don't have. And that's kind of what they're looking for. He's a physical guy, really good high point ball type of player. Franklin's probably a better route runner and quicker and more explosive, probably faster. So it's kind of just what you prefer. But I think with this system, I think FSU feels like they have a few guys that can do that. I think what Keon gives is just something they don't have a lot of just really physical guys that just can do so many things when the ball's in the air.
All right, very well. Lots to keep
Yep.
an eye on here. Michael doing it, appreciating it. Let me see here. There's somebody that I wanted to thanked us. He put a thumbs up in his message. I hope he actually hit the thumbs up to like the video there. That's
Okay.
really
Yeah,
nice.
definitely hit the like button when you do that.